I'm Jeff May from the AICPA. I'm here with Joey Lake. He is the Chief Operating Officer of the Climate Service. It's one of our companies in the 2020 cohort for the Startup Accelerator program that's jointly run by CPA.com and the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. We're on the first day of our meeting event for these companies, and it's great to have you here, Joey.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for joining us. Can you give me an overview of what the Climate Service does?
Absolutely. So the Climate Service uses world-class science and technology to help companies and investors to measure their risk from climate change. So we don't look at the impact of a company on the climate, rather we look at the impact of climate change on a company. So to give you two quick examples of that, we look at physical risk. So as an example, if you owned a portfolio of assets along the coastline of Florida, what's the risk to those assets from sea level rise or flooding over the next 1, 10, 20 years? And we also look at transition risk as well. So what's the risk or opportunity to your company from the transition to a lower carbon economy? So the obvious example there is, let's say, the auto industry. So some companies are going to be at risk from this transition to low carbon, and others are taking advantage of it. So Tesla is a clear example there.
Okay. You mentioned during your presentation that your solution's getting traction. What's the demand that's sort of driving that right now?
Yeah, we've seen an astonishing pickup in demand for climate risk analytics over the last 6 or so months. And there's 3 main factors driving it. The first one, and it's a very big factor, and we've talked about it today, is the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. So some guidelines that were introduced a couple of years ago that are really starting to pick up steam, and more than 1,000 companies, more than 1,000 of the biggest companies in the world have now agreed to comply with these guidelines and measure and disclose their risk from climate change. The second big factor is investor pressure. And so a lot of investors and shareholders are putting pressure on the companies that they're investing in to disclose. They see this now as a business critical risk, and they want to understand what the risk is inherent in those companies they invest in. And the biggest news there over the last couple of months was Larry Fink's letter from BlackRock, saying that companies should really be, that they invest in should really be complying with TCFD. And the final factor, and this is the most sort of disappointing one, is that there's just very clear evidence of the impact that the changing climate is having on investments. And so it's already causing billions of dollars a year in damages to investments.
So what can companies do with the data that you provide, with the risk analytic profiles that you provide? What kind of decisions will that drive for them?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So what's happened with the evolution of this space over the last couple of years is that the conversation has changed dramatically. So it used to be that this was a conversation that happened in the marketing department or the corporate social responsibility department, and companies wanted to be seen to do well or do good. And now actually the conversation has shifted from the marketing department to the strategy department, the risk department, and to the chief investment officer as well. And this topic of climate risk and opportunity is now seen as business critical. So this is actually the largest idiosyncratic risk left that's mostly unmeasured by most of the companies and investors in the world. And so there is some opportunity there for the folks who do understand this risk better, measure it, and then manage it.
Great. So what did you make of the first day of the accelerator program so far, and what do you hope to get from this sort of engagement with the AICPA and CPA.com?
Yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful so far. We're thrilled to be here. I'm here with Dr. Therese Feng, who's our VP of Research. And I think that AICPA and CPA.com are seen as trusted advisors in this space. And I think what we see from our participation is that this topic of climate risk is really moving into the main. And our mission as an organization is to embed climate risk data in every business and financial decision on the planet. And in order to do so, it needs to just become mainstreamed into annual reporting. And so we're here to learn. We've learned a lot already. It's been fascinating to interact with a lot of the different advisors, and we're learning and enjoying every moment.
That's great. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.